Welcome y bienvenidos. My name is Antonio Lopez, and today this workshop is all about HVAC basics. A lot of you out there might know what HVAC already stands for, but for those of you that may not, it's a simple acronym that means heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And while there are many ways to heat or ventilate and cool your home, here's how I want to start things off. Ask yourself this question. Have I ever thought about my home's HVAC system and how it impacts myself, my family, or anyone residing inside of that home? All right, so let's use this. Let's use this question today to help focus on a few key areas when we're thinking about our HVAC system. This way you can be more comfortable, you can breathe a little better, because our goal is tied to better understanding the role, operation, and components of your HVAC system. Hopefully that translates to increasing that confidence, being more confident as a homeowner, so that you can know what are simple tasks you can take on as a DIY, like changing out an air filter, or even simply having a more robust conversation whenever dealing with an HVAC professional. All right, let's start off with that role. What does your HVAC system do? In short, its role is to keep you comfortable. And it's accomplished by controlling temperature, controlling the airflow, filtering air. And as simple as this may sound, well, the actual operation, it's a bit more complex. All right, here's an interesting analogy. Your HVAC system, it operates like different parts of your body. So operation starts when your HVAC system thinks and it takes action on how to control that air temperature. Thinking like a brain. Breathing that air in and out throughout rooms using those supply vents, those return vents, kind of like your lungs, your mouth, your nose. And as it's filtering the air, it's traveling throughout your home's circulatory system of sealed ducts. And while this initial operation of how your home controls the temperature, it can vary based on the age, the type of home that you have, the location of your home, the goal is still the same. It's to keep you warm, it's to keep you cool, it's to keep you comfortable. And considering most American homes use some type of separate appliance system to heat and cool their home. All right, so air conditioning is lowering that temperature, and then that furnace is raising the temperature. The furnace often uses natural gas or electricity to heat your home, and then it's distributing that heated air with a fan. All right, this furnace is usually located somewhere inside of your home. So think of your garage, your basement, could be even a utility closet. Let's look at the air conditioning. Designed to cool your home. It's distributed with the same fan we just mentioned, and usually there's a condenser unit that's located outside of your home. It can be very loud when it's working, or it might even be in an attic. Look, but regardless of how the temperature is controlled, this air, it's got to move. It's got to circulate throughout your home, whether it's being treated or not. And that means circulation is really important. It's how the HVAC system uses a series of ducts and vents to both capture and send air throughout the home. Remember, temperature is being controlled by respective equipment, and it's now being continuously circulated as long as some part of the HVAC system is on. Now this brings up the question or the topic of air quality. And it's really important because this allows you to breathe better, and it also allows the HVAC system to work smoothly. So that means filtration has to be designed. There's a filter that's built into the HVAC system. Captures dust, pet hair, if you've got furry animals, if you've got cats, dogs. And it's also designed to capture other common home airborne particles. This is improving the air quality you breathe while reducing buildup within that HVAC system and all the different components. All right, particle collection, it's occurring every single time air is recirculating throughout your home, and it goes through the HVAC system. So eventually, there comes a point in time when filters, well, they've got to be either cleaned or replaced to keep that system running efficiently. All right, so this DIY task is one of many homeowner responsibilities regarding HVAC maintenance, and it brings up the topic of services and maintenance. Look, we can provide support. This is the good news. We can support you because you can't do it alone. There are things that you should not do alone when it comes to HVACs for your homes. So think about partnering with your local Home Depot store, all right, that can help you get information on services and maintenance. In fact, these are some of the brochures you might see often as soon as you walk in. Think about grabbing one of those, partnering with your local Home Depot store. Use an alternative option too. If you're like me, I like to do as much as I can online at home. So you can log on to homedepot.com, scroll through and take a look. We'll show you right here. This is where you can connect with local heating and cooling experts for a variety of HVAC services. We've got a ton of support information right there at your fingertips. So it allows you to, just at your own pace, see what's out there, see what's available, and use it to your advantage. Because if we go back, remember that analogy of the HVAC system to your body? And you might be like, Antonio, that was a little weird. Just consider this. When you think of that analogy, consider taking a proactive approach, just like you would with your own health. Right? Something's wrong with your body, you try to preempt it, try to be proactive versus reactive. And so if you're proactive with your HVAC operation, that can help promote a healthy HVAC operation. In fact, it's a really good idea to have at least an annual checkup for your HVAC system, especially if you live in really extreme climates. Think about preempting those major cooling and that major heating season. Have it looked at, tuned up, maintained. Going to provide a lot of value. And this is now where we're going to focus in a little deeper. We're going to now go into the individual components. So I want you to pay close attention, because here I'm going to mention what you can do as a DIY and what's really, time to call a professional. Because how each component works can greatly impact the energy efficiency, your utility bills, your cost of ownership, the overall lifespan of your system, and again, your day-to-day comfort. Your comfort really starts with a component called a thermostat. This can be found usually in an interior hallway or some wall that's away from any obstructions. It's away from direct sunlight. And this is controlling and measuring the temperature in your home. It can even activate the fan without adjusting the temperature to kind of promote that circulation. Now, types of thermostats will vary. You can get everything from really old thermostats that are basic, just simple tasks, to adding more features, more functionality, more advanced capabilities. Things like maybe a scheduling feature, which can help maintain desirable climates based on the time of day. Or now you can get into more advanced features and smart integration, where you can have remote access on your mobile device. You can have learning capabilities for it to adjust how you use it according to your preferences, or even just access robust data that gives you an in-depth report of how you use it, ways to increase efficiency and lower your utility bills. Again, you become an energy guardian if you want to. All right, now if you're interested, we do have a specific workshop. It's DIY how to install a thermostat. It talks about all the different options, and it shows step-by-step instruction to install a smart thermostat. So if you want to check that out, really recommend it. It's helpful, and it talks about all of these important items we just mentioned. But a couple tips before we move on. As I shared that I'm going to give you some DIY stuff. So one kind of like general consideration is the Energy Star rating kind of guidance is saying you want to maintain your temperature range ideally between 70 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. That's kind of like the optimal range. And then if you are considering upgrading your thermostat, you want to go down the route of getting a smart one, absolutely encourage it. just make sure, take advantage of the manufacturer's compatibility checker. All right, you can go to their website. It'll help guide you through ways to confirm that your system is set up to work well with that thermostat. All right, the other component, furnace, a way to keep you heated, right? It's creating that heat that's distributed throughout the home, and it has these coils that are going to be heated by gas or electricity. That fan that we mentioned before, it's pushing that air past the coils to heat it up, and then that air is being distributed throughout your home. It's going through the circulation system of the ductwork. All right, now, I'll tell you this. I've lived all over the US. I grew up in New York City in a pre-war New York City building, and my dad was a superintendent. We had, talk about like a really old apartment, radiator heating that was heated by a boiler system that barely worked effectively during winters. It was either too hot or too cold. And we had a window unit for air conditioning that was always fun. Anytime that the microwave was on with the air conditioning, power blew, so we had to go reset the breakers. All right, when I lived in the Pac Northwest, I had only a forced hot air furnace in my home. No air conditioning. So that was a learning curve. But the reason why I share that is you learn by doing, by understanding. And so this is why I'm sharing these tips, because the first tip I'm going to share is know what you have. Look up the system, look up the make, the model. If you just purchased a home, use that inspection report, but use this to get you the information you need. Because once you know what you have, you can understand it better and know what you need to do. What is your kind of your support, it's just helpful information. So know what you have, and if in doubt, when you have an HVAC professional come in, partner with them. They can give you a little more guidance and provide those answers. Another thing is, here's a tip, when it comes to your furnace, you want to keep ample space around it. So don't block it up with anything. If you're using it for storage, don't lean anything up against it. Right? It needs space to breathe. And if you get a chance, removing the panel, you can give it a little cleanup. Vacuum the exterior, the perimeter, inside. This is a good thing to get little bugs or debris or dust that builds up in there. Maintain it. So that's a DIY tip for that. Then we got the air conditioner. This is a little more complex. And if you have an AC unit or you use an air conditioner, there's kind of two main components. You've got condenser coils that are going to be housed within that condensing unit that's usually outside of your home. And then we have the evaporator coils. That's located inside of your home, usually on top of the furnace or near that furnace, or if you have an air handler. These two units, they kind of communicate with each other, and they're actually recirculating a liquid refrigerant that's done through a compressor or some type of pump. Now with the evaporator coils, this is inside. This needs to use that refrigerant through the copper coils, and the purpose of that is to create cool air, essentially. All right, so once that is done, the cool air can be distributed throughout the home to keep you comfortable, but that refrigerant is now going through kind of a change period. I'll keep it simple here, because that refrigerant is ending up actually over at the condenser coils. And because that condenser coil is located outside, it's using the help of an exhaust fan, that loud fan you hear. And what it's doing, it's removing heat from the refrigerant, essentially to be able to return that refrigerant back to the evaporator coils so it can continue keeping you cool. So it's keeping you cool, it's creating that cool air, and that recirculation of the refrigerant allows that process to be maintained. Keeps happening. It's the circle of life with the AC, and that's keeping you cool, essentially. Now, look, that's a little kind of a simplified approach to what's a pretty complicated process and system, but here's something that's not so complicated. Here's some not so complicated tips to stay cool. That condenser unit. We've got an indoor basics workshop that shows how to clean it, how to maintain it. So if you want to take on a DIY, you can clean that outside condenser unit. You can do that with the hose, with a vacuum. Just make sure that you proceed with caution, because one of the big things that can happen is there are very delicate metal fins that if they get bent, well, that can compromise the integrity of it and warrant replacement sooner than later. So it is a DIY-friendly task. We also want you to keep that perimeter area around the condenser unit free and clear of any obstruction. So if you've got plants, anything that's within a 2-foot perimeter, remove it. Take care of leaves, take care of debris. Keep that free and clear so that it can breathe. And for my friends out in the Northeast especially, if you're dealing with severe winters, you got snow, ice buildup, and you want to cover up the AC condenser unit outside, I'm all for it. I support it. Just keep in mind 2 things. If you're going to cover it, then make sure that your system isn't set on an auto function. God forbid if you go through an unseasonable warm winter and then the AC kicks on, well, you covered it, that's going to damage your system. And also, if you're going to cover it and you don't have an auto feature on, just make sure you don't use the AC whenever it's covered. All right, so just be mindful if you're going to cover that condenser unit, proceed with caution. All right, let's dive into the fan. Sometimes it's also called the air handler or the blower. And this is located usually within the furnace. All right, and this is pulling air from inside the home. It's pushing it through a filter, past the heating or cooling coils, whatever it needs to do, before it sends it throughout your home circulation system of the ducts and the vents. Real simple. Here's some DIY tips. A couple things. You want to avoid having the fan on all the time. That can really strain the system. You don't need to. Really minimize that. This is to extend the shelf life of your equipment. Think of alternatives. All right, so consider things like maybe having the auto function on your thermostat, using windows when possible, ceiling fans, etc. You get the idea. Just maintain it. All right, now this is a really important area. We'll focus on HVAC air filters because they come in all shapes, sizes, and types. And just make sure you know where your filter is located. All right, this might be near the furnace, air handler. It might be in the ceiling. It might be in a wall vent. Find it. Take your phone, take a photo, then replace it. Now here's the deal. We get tons of questions. We get frequently asked questions regarding filters, and it's like, hey, Antonio, what's the best filter for my home? And this really depends on a few questions that I want you to answer. So think about how many people live inside of your home. Do you have pets? How many pets? Do you have allergies? What's your budget? And what type of responsibility are you willing to take on? Because you can take a look here. We've got a variety of types. We've got everything from pleated. We've got fiberglass. We've got reusable. That's right, washable, reusable, that you can cut to size. Pretty cool, but again, all have different pros and cons. So pleated, really great value. They can be changed up to every 3 months. Whereas fiberglass, you got to change it out every month. They're really low cost and they don't offer a lot of filtration. Reusable, great. You're going to have to clean it every month, but this eliminates the need of tossing something out. So it can reduce your carbon footprint, and it also saves you a little bit of cash, especially the longer you use it. Now, one key thing to understand, there's a number on this that determines the size. And this is represented in nominal. These are nominal sizes, which means it's an approximation of the length, the width, and the depth or the thickness. So that means you can look at the same nominal sizes for different filters, and they won't exactly be the same because the exact fit can vary slightly. That's okay. That's totally fine, because whichever option you go with, if it's pretty close to what you have, that's still fine. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit. Kind of the rule of thumb is if you have a filter and you're replacing it, where it's housed, if it's about up to 5/8 of an inch smaller than the actual housing of your HVAC filter, that's okay. To give you a reference point, it's about half of the top of your fingertip. That's about 5/8 of an inch, give or take. So you've got some wiggle room there. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly 100% matched and a really, really tight fit. So at sizing, and then the last thing is rating. Got a lot of different ratings. They can be represented in NPR, in FPR, and MERV. Regardless, the rule of thumb is the higher the rating, the more filtration it offers. So it's going to do better with allergies, with pollutants, Just think of that rule of thumb. The higher the number, the higher the filtration. And if needed, we didn't talk about this, but something to consider is upgrading to a HEPA air filter. This is going to offer the most filtration. It does add the cost. It does require some type of separate system or setup, but you don't have to replace it as often, usually anywhere from 6 months to about a year to change on a HEPA air filter. So a lot of pros and cons there overall, but good food for thought. I did want to show something really important because when I first moved into my home that I currently own, it was a little bit of a nightmare scenario because, well, the filter hadn't been changed out in quite some time. Let me come over to another camera and show this to y'all. All right, so take a look. On the left is, that's the filter I had to replace. Depleted filter, I replaced it in my HVAC system. And if you had to take a guess how long this was in the HVAC system without being changed, take a guess, anywhere from 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. I'll give you all some time, get your answers in there. And then on the right is an unused pleated air filter, same size. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna turn on a light just to kind of really have an impact on what happens when a filter gets dirty. And what you can see is on the right, that clean unused filter, the light shines through, which that's great. It's still filtering, but it's letting air through. Where on the left, we talked about how important it is for you to breathe and for your system to breathe. Well, that's not happening because all of this debris, all this buildup is preventing any airflow. That's why you can barely see the light go through. This is not good. So you want to get in the habit of routinely inspecting these. They say up to 3 months for pleated air filters. Might need to do it sooner. It just depends on different factors. Again, just take a look at that. This is unused and the dirty one. This stuff still grosses me out. All right, so the fun fact about that filter, it was about almost a year and a half without being changed or replaced. That's a long time. So pretty gross, pretty nasty. A little scared for my HVAC system, but hoping for the best. But you can avoid that. You can preempt that because you have the knowledge. All right, so just stay on top of it. Really helpful stuff to show that. There's a couple other really important things too. So I'll share some DIY tips here. First off, anytime you're taking on a DIY project that's going to cause a lot of dust and debris, like repairing drywall and you're sanding, turn your HVAC system off. That way you're preventing all of that being sucked into the ventilation system, so you're avoiding that. So turn it off with those really nasty DIY projects. Think of alternative ways to open windows, doors, have ventilation in other ways versus relying on your system. You also want to read the instructions. This will give you pictures of how to install it. It answers a ton of information, questions that you might have. And look at the way that this is marked off. There's going to be some type of arrow indicator boom that's going to show you where to put it on. So you're following the direction of airflow, basically. So it'll tell you, install this so that it's pointed towards the air handler or the blower. All helpful information. Follow the instructions, and if in doubt, partner with your HVAC professional whenever you're having that maintenance done. Another tip is, talked about knowing your system. We'll take it a step further and identify the system limitations when it comes to filter ratings. All right, know what is the highest rating that your system is designed to support. It's going to be really helpful. You don't want to strain your system. And if you do go the route of going with a reusable, washable filter, get a couple of these. You're going to have to change them out monthly to clean them out. This gives you a buffer. So when you clean it out or when you replace it, you've got one ready to go. Then you can casually clean this air filter and then give it its time to properly dry so that you don't put a wet filter in your HVAC system. Again, all helpful tips. Hopefully it's good stuff for y'all. All right, let's talk about the ducts because the ductwork delivers air throughout your entire home, and whether this is made from a rigid or a more flexible material, it's still doing the same process. And efficiency can drastically decrease if these are not properly sealed or if there are leaks. In fact, consider this little tidbit. About 70% of homes, apparently, with centralized air have a poorly installed ductwork system. So, y'all, I know it might not be something to laugh at. You might just want to have that HVAC professional maybe take a look and run a pressurized test. This uses special equipment. It can analyze the efficiency of your ductwork, so it might be worth checking out. A couple tips from a DIY standpoint. If you do see your ductwork and maybe you're like, Antonio, I've noticed there's some holes or some damage, maybe you see some leaks, go ahead and get yourself some HVAC specific foil tape. This stuff is great. Patch those holes, repair it. It's flexible, clean the area, but this stuff is almost like aluminum foil, but it's more durable, and again, it has that adhesiveness that's going to work well specifically for HVAC systems and ductwork. So do that. If not, partner with a pro. And we also want to recommend have your ducts cleaned. If you haven't had your ductwork cleaned ever, if you don't know the last time it's been cleaned, it might be very well worth getting that done. So continue on. Got a few more sections to cover. Hopefully, again, this really helps you. Hopefully it doesn't scare y'all. All right, we got vents and registers, our interchangeable names, and this is where your ducts are connecting into each room of your home to deliver air, and it's also returning air to the HVAC system. So think of inhale and exhale. That whole circulation of air happens all through those vents. There are fewer return vents, but they're often larger in the overall size compared to output vents. Generally speaking, almost every room has an output vent, and it's very common for them to have some type of directional adjustment. This is an older one that I replaced in my home because it was nasty and painted over way too many times, but again, directional adjustments. Couple tips. This is a perfect segue. Y'all, clean these, all right? Clean them, especially the return vents. They are like magnets for dirt and debris, especially if you have furry friends. So wipe, dust, vacuum, whatever you got to do. Also, if you remove these, the floor ones or the wall ceilings, wherever they're at, the supply vents, the return vents, and you notice there's some gaps, some openings, you can use something like that foil tape to help seal the area. Some folks even use a spray foam insulation. And that gap that I'm talking about is between the ductwork, the actual opening on your wall or your floor, and if there's any space between the ductwork and maybe the drywall, those are inefficiencies, those are potential leaks. I want to seal that up. Another tip, don't cover these up, all right? Do not cover them. Whether it's a return vent or an output vent, do not obstruct it. It's going to strain your system. And with that being said, be mindful if you are adjusting the vents and using some of those directional guides. Minimize keeping them closed all the time. Again, little suggestion there. Hopefully that helps as we talk about the last but certainly not least area, because eventually all roads as a homeowner lead to this question that you're going to have to ask yourself: do I repair or replace fill in the blank? For this, do I repair or replace my HVAC system? And if it isn't working as it should, maybe you think it's not, prepare yourself, brace, because look, there might be some scary realizations here. Research options, and then consider these questions. Is my HVAC system 7 years or older? Does it require frequent repairs? Does it fail to heat or cool certain parts of my home? Is it running too often? Is it turning off and on way too much? And is there suddenly an increase, a really high increase on my utility bills? And if you're answering yes to most, if not all of these questions, you might need to replace the entire system as the best option. Look, the reality is HVAC system is one of the most expensive systems for your home. The decision is yours to replace or repair. Just connect with an HVAC professional. Have that really great conversation. You can do that. You've got the information, you've got the knowledge, you've got the resources. Don't forget, you're not here doing it alone. So whether you're connecting with your local Home Depot store, just chit-chatting, or you're logging on to homedepot.com, you're checking out our workshops, you're looking at HVAC-related services. Use all of that, and certainly last but not least, don't forget, download our resource guide. We designed one with tons of links and supporting information on HVAC basics. It's there to help you folks, because this is not a simple task, all right? We call this workshop HVAC basics, but let's be real here. There's a lot invested in here, and we want to make sure that you're the best homeowner that you can be. Look, I understand. The challenges of being a homeowner, it doesn't stop. And I got to tell you, I'm truly grateful for a few things, for this opportunity, for living in different parts of the country, for traveling as much as I did. Even those sweltering summers that I would spend in Puerto Rico, right, without any air conditioning, I'm all grateful and thankful because it's brought me here today with the goal to enhance your confidence as a homeowner and to help you better understand the role, the operation, and components of your HVAC system. I really hope we met that goal. Remember, check out more workshops. We've got everything from DIY to Homeowner 101. And don't hesitate, reach out. We've got our workshops live at homedepot.com inbox. Email us. We love answering questions and hearing from you all the time, folks. We just want to wrap this up because from behalf of the entire Home Depot, from myself, entire team here, folks, thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Until next time. Wepa!